By my calculations, I have seen everything.
Ghostbusters, Animal Actors Show, Post-Production Theater, Alfred Hitchcock, Phantom of the Opera Makeup, Hanna-Barbera, E.T., Earthquake, Jaws, Back to the Future, King Kong.
Hold it! Back to the Future. I missed that one. No time. Forward to the past!
Universal Studios Hollywood first opened to the public in 1915, 3 years after the studio's founding. The public were welcome to buy tickets to visit for as long as they wanted and were able to watch what was filming at the time. The setup worked well at the time, since the films were silent, but when the film industry moved towards filming with audio, Universal were unable to control the ambient sound from spectators, and the studio had to close its gates to the public.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Not one to give up on an idea though, eventually Grey Line tours will be permitted to drive through the backlot in the late 1950s. To try and create extra income in 1964, the company invested heavily in the facilities to create an immersive guest experience. This experience will go on to become the Universal Tram Tour. The huge success of the venture over the next 20 years built the inspiration to invest in the creation of an East Coast theme park. The plan was to build on a relatively small plot of land just down the road from Walt Disney World, which Walt had actually looked at himself when scouting land for his upcoming Walt Disney World project, but it was deemed too small for the needs. In the early 1980s, Universal began looking for a partner to assist with the huge costs associated with the project, and among others, one of these companies approached was Paramount Studios, headed by none other than Michael Eisner himself, who actually rejected the idea. The plan never came to be at the time though, and it was feared that a tram tour experience such as the one in Hollywood would not be able to compete with Disney, so the project was dropped completely.
Hello, I'm Steven Spielberg.
In an interesting coincidence, Steven Spielberg's former college roommate, Peter Alexander, also a former Disney Imagineer, was working on a King Kong figure for the tram tour in Hollywood. Spielberg was so impressed he agreed to work on the design idea for the Back to the Future ride. Steven Spielberg's friend George Lucas was working on the Disney attraction Star Tours.
The world's open up when you're out that far, and all you've got to do is wish upon a star.
A vacation in space is out of this world. Join us now for a flight to the future on George Lucas's Star Tours.
And it actually gloated to Spielberg that Universal could never produce such a ride. The success of Kong's addition to the tram tour in Hollywood and the signing on of Steven Spielberg convinced Universal to continue to develop the Florida plan. Land clearing began and the park was officially announced with an opening date of December 1989, with attractions influenced from the Universal Hollywood Tram Tour. The complex will be built on a just over 400-acre plot of land owned by MCA, or the Music Corporation of America, who would eventually become known as the Universal Music Group and the parent company of Universal Pictures and the Cineplex Odeon Corporation. The new park would be known as Universal Studios Florida.
Universal Studios Florida, premiering in Orlando, spring 1990. It's the greatest Hollywood production ever.
Expectations for the new park were set at 6 million visitors a year and to be a direct competitor to Disney World. Rather than just the tram tour though, as originally planned, the studio moved to the idea of individual attractions. While Disney had previously welcomed additional competition to the area and to increase visitors to the Orlando area, not one to be shy to take others' ideas, after hearing the plans to go ahead with the Universal Park, Michael Eisner, now the CEO of the Walt Disney Company, revealed his plan to open a movie-based theme park as the new park at Walt Disney World, which just so conveniently happened to have multiple similarities to the previous Universal Orlando park plans which he had actually seen.
So we enlisted the creator of Star Wars, George Lucas, to work with our Imagineering team to create an attraction that would capture the force, sensation, and excitement of space travel.
Universal, though, did not back down to this competition and continued to compete by aiming to build a better park with better rides, shows, and attractions. The only issue at the time, though, was that Universal didn't really have any idea where to begin. Eisner took the tram concept he saw earlier and went with it. Disney had the advantage as well and used the Disney Independent Government System, the Reedy Creek Improvement District, a Disney-controlled agency that controls and issues all the buildings and zoning permits which Disney requires when it undertakes new construction. Which is why today you don't see Disney construction permits appear to the public, unlike other parks in the area. Able to bypass the usual channels for permits, it was able to open up its movie-based theme park before Universal.
I don't think anybody else has the resources to attack quality the way we do. Most people take shortcuts for either economic reasons or because they're lazy. Most people take shortcuts because they just don't know how to do it right.
MGM Studios, though, would ultimately help build the hype for the new Universal park. Opening reviews for the Disney park were mostly negative, with many saying it was rushed with few attractions and a half-day park. High hopes, though, began to circulate that the Universal park would be a marvel. Unfortunately, the opening day for the park was anything but. Despite the team's efforts, many of the top attractions were simply not ready to open. And if the park had opened like it did in today's age, the social media would ruin the chances of the park without question. The park was already delayed from its original planned opening date of December 1989, and eventually did open on June 7th, 1990. The park featured a huge celebration for its opening, with many celebrities who were featured in the park's rides attending the event. Confrontation, the ride that inspired the park to begin with, was down more than it operated during the opening day. Jaws was open for less than 2 hours, and Spielberg actually got stuck out in the lake for a large part of the day. The lines were huge and the park was overcrowded. Originally, the park was just one park and a single parking lot that sat where City Walk does today, with 2 entrances. The traffic entering the park on opening day was backed up for miles. The park itself opened with 12 attractions, but that was still double the amount of Disney's MGM Studios. Most of them shows with 5 rides. Earthquake, Confrontation, and Jaws were the big 3. The rest of the lineup was comprised of Alfred Hitchcock, The Art of Making Movies, Animal Actors, E.T., The Fantastic World of Hanna-Barbera, Ghostbusters, Murder, She Wrote post-production, and the Phantom of the Opera horror makeup show, as well as the production tour offered and the Nickelodeon studios next door. The park also had the world's largest Hard Rock Cafe connected to the park via a guitar neck bridge. All of the big rides suffered multiple malfunctions on opening day, and the queues elsewhere grew drastically. The park's guest services began offering refunds or a free ticket to come back and try the park again, hopefully when it was working. Universal, though, began to tweak and improve areas of the park, rapidly improving the park's infrastructure and operations. The following year, Fright Nights became a huge hit for Universal, and eventually would go on to become Halloween Horror Nights in its second year. The event is consistently ranked as the top-rated Halloween event in the US. Gradually, the park began to morph into a top-class theme park, and the addition of a strong Back to the Future ride opening created a new buzz for the park.
The impact between the 2 vehicles should send us straight back to the Institute.
Like MGM Studios, Universal Studios was also a work in production studio and featured multiple multi-purpose sound stages. Many people even claim that Orlando would become the Hollywood of the East.
Now come answers to the questions audiences have been asking for over 30 years. Psycho 4. The Beginning.
In the early days, Psycho 4: The Beginning and the TV series Swamp Thing were filmed inside the park, along with many others.
Oh, here it goes.
Many classic Nickelodeon shows were also filmed right next door, including Kenan and Kel. As well as this, multiple music videos also feature the park as the backdrop. Universal learned a hard lesson from its opening and continued to learn and improve until this day. Now consisting of 2 parks and a water theme park and multiple hotels, the park is more popular than ever with a huge expansion in the works. While many thank a certain wizard for the huge evolution of the park has been evolving ever since it first opened back in 1990, and it's time to take a look on this series not just into the past, but also the present, and maybe even some of the future. Never afraid to choose and replace any of its rides with something new and fresh to keep the park evolving, many attractions have come and gone throughout their lifetime, and it's time to take an expedition through their history. My name is Sam, and welcome to Expedition Universal Studios, Florida. Thank you so much for watching this introduction episode to the series. Please let us know in the comments below where you would like to stop first on our tour of the park, and be sure to join us again for an in-depth look at each area within. If you want to find out more on upcoming episodes, make sure to follow us on Twitter, and for exclusive early looks at new episodes and more, check us out on Patreon as well. Also, please check out our link below if you would like to join the expedition with your very own brand new Expedition Universal Studios Florida t-shirt. The first person to tweet us with a picture of them inside Universal Orlando wearing it will receive a special Expedition theme park prize. We will see you next time.
But they kinda in the middle cause they always getting caught. This ain't the Hardy Boys or a Nancy Drew mystery. It's just Keenan and Kel in your vicinity like Siegfried and Roy or Abbott and Costello, Magic and Kareem or Penn and Teller. Somebody's in trouble.